Hey, what's up, prospectors? Millsy here. Now that all the beta weekends are complete, I'd like to discuss my experience through this whole beta process, weekend 1 through 7. Let's get into it. The first weekend was just a basic introduction into how to survive on the planet Icarus, not really providing much of a challenge aside from figuring out which resources provide what and how to apply them. The second weekend is when they introduced more predators and storms into the game, giving you a more in-depth feeling of what it will really be like to try and survive on the planet Icarus. This is where I'll pick up the review, as weekend 1 is fairly uneventful and just more of a first impressions of a game. The second beta weekend, they introduced storms into the game, and in doing so, also accidentally and hilariously introduced bear spam. This is a pretty hilarious bug that was frustrating to deal with at first, as we didn't know it actually was a bug. I was still playing solo at this time, and my Icarus movie Retribution shows exactly how I was spawn camped by bears. It was pretty funny because a lot of people were just telling me that if I just log out for a bit, the bears will wander off. And that's true to a sense. I'm not a streamer, so people aren't there to see exactly what I do behind the scenes to try and make something work. I logged out multiple times, waiting 10-15 minutes to come back, and the bears were quite literally sleeping on my bag. So the second I would log in, I'd be dead already. Once I saw on Discord that they will be hotfixing the issue, I just waited for the hotfix. Then that, in fact, did fix the problem. All everyone got to see was my anger and countless attempts to get free of the bears. Then eventually, my retribution. Now about the game itself. I'm going to bring up the first weekend briefly and just talk about the performance and optimization of the game here. I record at 60 frames per second, so I cap my frames at 60 in this game. Week 1, I was able to achieve 60 frames per second in the game, but it would dip below 50 at times. My settings are on high with a 2080 RTX, the GPU being the weakest part of my system. I was fairly worried at this time, thinking to myself, I may actually need to upgrade and pay an outrageous price for a GPU to play this game. I even have a discussion video prior to the beta weekends being available where that was one of my number one worries, was not only optimization of the game, but is it going to be more geared towards the folks with like 30 series cards or high-end AMD cards. Once the second week came around, I had no issues. I was capped at 60, stayed at 60, even through storms, wildfires, action sequences, rarely getting dips below like 57. I was pleasantly surprised at how well my GPU was able to hold up with the high graphics, but do keep this in mind for later. So weekend 3 and 4 was the Arctic biome, and week 3 was my first weekend playing with the group. Let me preface this with this. It's super important to make sure that your group has the same type of mindset you do in this game. Even if you have one person trying to steer the group going a different way, it can get pretty frustrating. I think this is true for really any survival game that you can play in groups to begin with. Being introduced to Sloth Ocelot and Batman and gearing up for the Arctic with them was truly an impressive feat. We all had the same mindset on how to tackle the Arctic biome weekend. Since there was no character wipe, I still was level 30 from the previous weekends, and Sloth and Batman had a little bit of catching up to do, but not very much. This made our process of resource gathering and crafting super streamlined. It helped that we all ended up speccing into different talent trees as well without playing together prior. We synergized really well and decided to keep on playing together. During the Arctic biome weekend video, Housing a Titan of the Past, it was actually the first time we met in Discord and played together, as we were both busy throughout the week with work, unable to link up. Knowing what I know now about the Arctic biome, we got super lucky our playstyles synergized. The Arctic, if you're simply not prepared for what it throws at you, can kill your group fairly fast. The Arctic biome holds some really intense blizzards that last quite a while, with intense periods in it that just freeze you right away. To put this in perspective, if you're in the forest biome with fur armor and a basic enviro suit, you can outlast any storm that occurs without taking any damage. Granted, you have the health stamina buff of simply like berries and meat. You can add fish for a third buff as well, but you don't need it to weather the storm in the forest biome. Even though at most, it will just kind of take your health once or twice when you have full exposure from the storm. The Arctic storms seriously beat you to death. If you get caught out in a blizzard with full armor, chances are you're going down. The longer you spend in the Arctic biome as well, your food resources tend to go down as berries don't grow in the Arctic and there are certainly no fish you can get as the water resources are frozen over. Rocketworks set up weekend 4 as our first taste of fulfilling a multi-stage mission. Broken Arrow was a 3-part mission to retrieve essentially the explosives out of satellites that were used to terraform Icarus, but obviously it went wrong, with us facing a black jaguar, another mammoth, and a roided out polar bear. What we ended up finding out during the 4th beta weekend was that you don't have to be present for the entire mission to get full credit. The missions are instead tied to just the prospect and not the players. For example, if I start playing a prospect and Sloth Ocelot joins and I end up having to leave, he can then continue to complete all 3 aspects of the mission without me. When I jump back into the prospect, it will show me all 3 are complete and I miss out on all the content of the missions and lore. This is something that heavily bothers me about Icarus so far. Before I get into the nitty-gritty details about weekend 5 and so on, I just wanted to sincerely say thank you for watching my videos and subscribing. Throughout the course of the beta of Icarus, I have gained close to 200 additional subscribers. As I am not a streamer, I can't thank each of you individually as you hit that sub button, but I just wanted to take a minute and sincerely thank you all for the support, and I hope I am able to retain your viewership as December 4th, Icarus comes out, and we will be tackling that game head on. I can't wait. So thank you. Weekend 5 was our first taste of the desert biome in Operation Black Sand. Another multi-stage mission where you have to craft a drill to bust through a cave to create an exit that goes into the desert biome. I'm just going to get this out of the way first. The mission format was the same, where you don't have to take part in anything really, just jump in at the last second and the mission is complete for you. Aside from that, the desert has to be my favorite biome aesthetically. It looks a lot like deserts here in the United States, like the Grand Canyon region mixed with some Egyptian type oasis. Food is plentiful here with large elephants and antelopes, and so far a couple predatory creatures such as lions and hyenas. The cave systems here are some of my favorite aesthetically, and I managed to find the cave within a waterfall in this particular biome. Dean Hall a while ago said during a Twitch stream that he only knows of one cave behind a waterfall. And he said this during, I believe, the weekend 2 beta weekend or 3. So ever since then, I've been checking behind every waterfall. Your only clue is that it's in the desert. When this game comes out, I'll show you guys where to find it. This is also the first biome where we actually get to encounter alien life in the game that is not normal to Earth. We got a massive sandworm, or as I like to call, dune worm. As we set up a GPS marker in the desert, this massive worm erupts from the ground, spitting poison out of its mouth and charging at us. It was really cool to see and battle against. After you kill it, you can pick up its scales and make really interesting and unique looking weapons with it. I made a dagger or knife out of its teeth. When inflicting damage, it poisons the target as well. Overall, the excitement level from this encounter was 10 out of 10. Not only are you battling against a massive dune worm, but you have to be mindful of the other wildlife around there, like predators charging in at you like hyenas and lions. For me, I'd say this was definitely the peak of my beta experience, seeing the alien life forms they have waiting behind that December 4th release date. I'm going to merge weekends 6 and 7 as they are somewhat the same. Week 6, we got a taste of more missions. Yes, the same complaint as before, missions tied to prospects, not players, but we got more lore based around what went wrong with the terraforming of Icarus itself. Week 7, we also, for the first time, got to collect currency from completing those same missions. We still weren't able to mine for exotics per se, but the currency we received, we were able to research and craft some exotic tools, modifiers, an MRE, and EnviroSuit. During this time in Beta Weekend 7, they were also having a photo contest as well as a building competition, which yes, also means they added in photo mode, which I have to say is an awesome feature. One more thing they added was ray tracing during the beta. During this weekend, performance issues arose across the board. This was probably my weakest weekend as optimization in the beta build cut my frames in half, with it oftentimes dipping down to like 12 frames per second. My gut reaction obviously after Beta Weekend 7 was to create an angry Yelp review video, but I quickly realized that even though yes, this was the final beta weekend before launch, 6 out of 7 beta weekends I have run pretty freaking smooth. I also don't know any other game as pretty as this that has such a low entry ticket into being able to play. You know, people with like 1070s being able to play this game is pretty remarkable. Obviously not on high settings or anything. Earlier I was talking about the optimization of the game. How I was pleasantly surprised how I was able to get a steady 60 frames, as that's what I record at as well. Weekend 7 was so horrendously bad for me, I just flat out decided that I had to pick and choose what to record. And even then, some of those recordings didn't come out great. It would be dishonest if I didn't say I was very frustrated during and immediately after Beta Weekend 7. Worried that it's the weekend before release, and how can your gut instinct be not to worry? But like I said, 6 out of 7 beta weekends were great. I ran into some bugs, not many, especially not worth mentioning. Rocketworks works a lot with Nvidia and AMD for the optimization for this game. It's very clear in their update posts, constantly adding more features for optimization for both sets of GPUs. I'm not going to say Icarus is going to be a perfect release and that everyone will be happy, but what I will say is that the complaining after beta week 7 may be met with silence upon release. I'll just leave it at that. We'll tackle the subject again if it's an actual issue at release. With the beta concluded, I have to say that this has been some of the most fun I've had in a long time while gaming. The game loop of Icarus has so much replayability. The fact that we're on an alien planet in an alien system adds so much potential for additional biomes as DLC. They can even expand on the Icarus game, leading us to maybe different nearby planets in the same system as Icarus. Add new technology to what we're able to research and craft for exotics. It really has endless possibilities as to what Rocketworks can add and do. So with that being said, the beta weekends are over and the full release date is December 4th. I hope to see you out there. And as always, I'll see you on the next one, prospectors.